Hey everyone, welcome back. It's time I go over another game that I've kinda completed. So I mentioned in a previous video that I played through Resident Evil 1 technically on the DS, and I didn't really complete Chris's story, but I did complete Jill's. So I figured, why not? As long as I'm working on Resident Evil games and it is October, I might as well work on one of the ones I didn't really complete. So I started that and I got into a little snag, so we're just going to be covering Jill stuff, so I technically didn't beat the full game again. Like with any other title I'm going to replay on this channel, I played a different version than I originally played. Partially because I also don't have any way to really capture video on a DS. So I picked this up a little bit around the time that it came out. For those that know, it's the PlayStation Classic. This is the North American version in the US and Canada. Here's the actual bad boy itself. Now this thing's actually a hot mess, and I will cover that a little bit in the video. But between me moving stuff and everything being kind of messy, I decided since this has HDMI, it'd be a lot easier than setting up my original PlayStation and trying it out. Plus, I wanted to actually use this. This thing's actually kind of cute. It actually has a lot of nice detail. And although there are some issues which people have talked plenty about by this point, the replica and design of it's perfect. They get the little nubs on the bottom. They have a little area where you would have opened up for the parallel port, and they even have the little sticker where the sticker on the bottom of it would be in the original models. Little faux vents exactly where they would be. Little faux memory card ports. Yeah, I actually think this thing's kind of cute and love it. Man, I barely know where to even start with this. There's so much that I could cover with just this game itself. I mean, if you count this, all the different re-releases of the title, the remake, the DS remake, the PAL versions, the director's cut, the Saturn port, there's just so much I could go over. But I don't think I'll really cover that in this video. Like I said though, I did complete the DS version, and I played through all of Jill's story, and I completed about half of Chris's story, but I didn't really finish it. I forget where exactly I left off. Before that, I actually did have a little more experience with it. I had tried it once or twice with some friends, and when I was really young, I actually watched my brother play it on his original PlayStation back in the year it was released. If you look here, here's his actual original PlayStation along with the PlayStation Classic for a size comparison. It's kind of crazy to think that was over 25 years ago. There's plenty to say, and there has been plenty said on this title. Only thing I will say about the director's cut is there is more features than were in the original title, and there's also new modes. We're then treated to a live-action cutscene of all the characters fleeing in the woods after investigating several reports of hikers being murdered out there. People have also reported spottings of what seems to be monsters out in the region. So a special rescue team called STARS was sent out to investigate it. There's Bravo Team and Alpha Team. Bravo Team was already sent out, but most of them were missing in action, so Alpha Team came to check out what was going on. This is when they get ambushed by dogs that seem to be rabid.
Chris Redfield. Jill Valentine. Barry Burton. Rebecca Chambers. Albert Wesker. Resident Evil.
After a tidbit of running, all of our characters enter a strange mansion that's been out in the woods.
What is this? Wow! What a mansion!
And here's where we're introduced to one of the biggest gripes that people have about this title nowadays, and maybe a little bit even then.
Captain Wesker, where's
This
Chris?
game has some pretty cheesy voice acting.
Stop it!
Now, I'm not going to go over the details about this, but if I recall correctly, they had English voice actors in Japan do all these lines, and they didn't really translate the script too much. So this was the original voice acting setup for the game, without much consideration to native English speaking in mind.
Partner, you know.
Okay, let me handle this.
We'll have plenty of lines like this throughout the title that are just kind of cheesy.
Stay alert.
Some people say this was 100% on purpose, trying to make the game seem more like an old horror action B-movie. I don't think that's fully true, although I believe that's partially played into it. I'm most certain that it has to do with the Japanese translation being more directly used, and no real regular localization for this voice acting. As soon as they enter the mansion, somehow Chris is not with them, and they hear a gunshot, so they decide to go check it out. For some reason, Wesker stays behind, and after entering this room, players are finally given control of Jill. Now, this is the second biggest gripe the series has, especially from newcomers going back to the original titles, is when this game uses tank controls, and the second thing being that this game uses pre-rendered backgrounds that are fixed camera angles. I really don't see how this is big of a deal as it is to some people. It's really just a little bit of a learning curve, and once you get it going, it's not hard at all. I just guess some people don't have object permanence at all. Barry then finds a weird blood stain.
Examining this. Hope this is not Chris's blood.
And Joe decides to go check out the next room, where we're introduced to one of the most famous cinematic things in all of gaming in the 90s and the PlayStation era. We encounter our first zombie, and then we're given the chance to either 1, combat it, or 2, do like I did in this playthrough, and run back into the other room and Barry will take care of it instantly. This is kind of neat because they subtly show you that if you aim a gun...
It's a monster!
This is kind of interesting because they actually subtly show you that if you use your handgun, there's a possibility that you can decapitate the zombie. Okay, so something else I want to touch on before we get too much more into the game. In the past several years, people just reference how this game is a quote-unquote remake of Sweet Home, an older horror game that Capcom made that was two-dimensional.
Anyway, let's report
And
this
although
to
this is
Wesker.
definitely true, this game takes some note from that. There was another game that about a decade ago everybody else mentioned that the game was inherited from. A little title called Alone in the Dark for the PC. This was actually the first 3D survival horror game, according to most people. A neat little technique that developers did back then was they masked some of the loading with these doors. Back then, that was a really good way of making suspense while you waited for the next region to load. Jill and Barry make it back to the main entrance of the mansion, and they realize that Wesker seemed to have run away. So for some reason, Barry thinks that they should split up because the mansion's easy to get lost in. Okay. But not before he drops one of the most fire lines in the entire series.
And Jill, here's a lockpick. It might be handy if you, the master of unlocking, take it with you.
Thanks. Maybe I'll need it.
Now that Jill has acquired the lockpick, she can enter the door on the other side of the hallway. And here we interact with the second major enemy of the game, the Cerberus, which is basically a zombie dog. It's actually kind of suspenseful how they come out of the windows. And then I did something that I never did in my original playthrough. In a room not too far into the game, you can find a shotgun mounted. If you take that shotgun and you leave to this little room here, the ceiling will slowly come down on you. Every time I played it before, I would just return it until I found a broken shotgun later in the game. But if you actually wait and take your time, Barry shows up and he saves Jill.
What's going on?
I never got this on my playthrough on the DS. Then Barry drops another famous line in the series.
Oh, Barry!
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.
Plus, having the shotgun early makes things a lot easier. If you aim upward with it while the zombie comes within close range of you, you can get an instant headshot. And you'll definitely need to get some headshots in, as ammo management is a core part of this game's mechanics. The pause menu is actually where you both manage and inspect items for further use. Then not far in, you actually find the first save room. These are kind of nice. You also have to be aware of the fact that item management and resource management is also included with saving. You need ink ribbons to save, and there's a limited amount of them through your playthrough. They use the typewriter as a metaphor of them writing up the letters, logging what they've done so far. Capcom was actually the first to ever coin the term survival horror. One aspect that definitely helps you managing items throughout the game is the fact that there's chests in each of the save rooms. Whenever you run into another chest, you can get all the items that you stored in the previous chest. Okay, so for here on out, I'm only going to cover a few things, the base story, some of the optional stuff I did, and not too much about the puzzles. One thing that I found was a really nice touch in this game is if you go into this one room and try to read this journal, a zombie pops out of this closet here. This informs you that that was a researcher that worked here, and slowly became mad and became the zombie that you found. You also got this cool room where you can poison this plant. I think in Chris's playthrough, you can do this a second time and actually kill the herbs that are over here. Once we get the key here, we can head back and open up another door that leads to a room with a piano. And oddly enough, it seems like Jill is trained in classical piano. Her playing Moonlight Sonata lets you open up a secret door here, and then we can find a wooden shield. If you remember in that room previously there was a metal shield, we can swap these two out, and that opens up this clock here, which brings up another thing. I originally played this on the DS remake, and in the DS remake they added touchscreen based puzzles, making this run a bit easier since there was no touchscreen based puzzles at all. There are a few areas that are technically optional, but are definitely a good idea to check out, like this little side garden area, because there's multiple healing items and only 2 Cerberus to deal with. The Cerberus are actually rather easy to deal with. As long as you keep a distance with the handgun and shoot at them as soon as they get up, they'll go down rather quickly within 3 or 4 shots. And something that's kind of disheartening is through your playthrough, you'll meet members of the star teams that are barely alive, and unfortunately none of them really live.
Here's the serum.
Such as Richard here.
Richard, hold on.
I know Jill wanted to help him
I'll
by
give
getting
you
the
a shot
serum,
now.
but literally he has a massive snake bite in the
Jill,
side of his chest.
here's my
I don't know how
radio.
that would have helped.
You should keep it. I'm...
No! Richard!
Jill, be careful.
Then we encounter a massive snake, which I suggest using acid rounds against, or shotgun rounds. I would not really fight this using the handgun. After you take it down, you can head to the back and get a key item. And once you come back through to the room that you entered from, Jill passes out from the poisoning.
Am I poisoned? Give me the serum.
She then wakes up in one of the save rooms that was actually doubling as a nursery, unsure who exactly brought her there. Then after completing a bit of the puzzles throughout the mansion, you get these 4 emblems, and you'll use them to unlock a door at the end of the mansion. This will lead you to the courtyard, which isn't too big, but you'll have to come back here a few times. And as you step outside, the radio that Richard gave you goes off. You can hear one of your team members trying to contact you, but unfortunately the radio is broken and will only go one way.
What the hell? Is nobody out there?
Brad, this is Jill.
This is Brad. Stars Alpha Team. Bravo Team, it doesn't matter. Anybody, answer me. This is Brad.
Oh, and then you'll meet a new type of enemy, the snakes. The standard sized snakes aren't really that hard to deal with. What you basically want to do is just run past them, because as long as you keep moving, they will not be able to attack you at this point. And trust me, we'll need ammo for stuff later on. At the other end of the courtyard, you'll find a completely different building that you'll be able to enter. This one's a bit more beat up. Quickly, you'll realize that there's a massive plant in this area, along with new types of enemies. This is called Plant 42. This will be the boss for the region. There's also a suspicious doorway that leads down to an aquarium that has a massive shark in it. I don't recall exactly the name of the shark enemies, but as long as you run, you can make it between all the doors without dealing with them. Once you drain the water, they'll be flopping around. Just remember to keep your distance while you shoot them down. Oh, there's also a room with a bee's nest. If you go through this room quick enough, they won't come out of the nest and attack you at all, and I'd suggest just doing that and keeping your pace up. As you enter the billiard, you'll be introduced to the poisonous giant spiders. If you use flame or bazooka rounds, you'll be able to take them down relatively quick, but be warned that once you do, they'll have many babies that will come out to attack you. The babies don't really do much damage, and you can kill them by actually stepping on them, but if there's a horde of them, you will get hurt a little bit. So once you stumble around here enough, you'll find out that Plant 42 can actually be killed with the chemicals. You'll find a password to enter this room with all the chemicals you'll need to make. And you have to remember to mix them properly, else you'll accidentally cause a poisonous gas to affect Jill. Once you poison the roots of Plant 42 and you go up to fight him, he's relatively easy. All you need is a few grenade rounds and he'll go down relatively quick. Then you'll be able to get another key for the mansion. As you go to leave the guardhouse, you'll run into Wesker again, and he's acting rather suspicious.
Wesker!
Jill, so you're safe.
That's what I was going to say. Where on earth have you been? You disappeared from the hall all of a sudden.
I'm sorry, but I have my reasons. Perhaps you guys have met them? It was all I could do to protect myself against those strange creatures.
Is that right? Anyway, it's good to see you're safe.
Jill, our first priority is to get out of here.
Yes, you're right.
Now, there are a lot of rooms in that mansion that we can't get into because they're locked up. I have been looking around for clues.
Okay, I'll go to the other house and see if I can find any clues.
Will you do that? I'm counting on you.
Now with all the keys to the mansion, we can open up pretty much every room in there. And as soon as you enter the mansion, you were introduced to a new type of enemy, the Hunter. I used to always think they were frogs back in the day, but evidently they're not. I'm not sure, I guess they're just more mutated people. I'm not gonna lie, they intimidated me on my first playthrough, and you'll definitely want to use the shotgun or the bazooka against them. We also find that now the mansion is full of hunters and more zombies. So if you cleared it out before, expect to deal with some more enemies. Entering one of the previously locked rooms, we actually encountered a snake that we fought before. It comes through the chimney, which I thought was always funny, and then it almost kills Jill, breaking a hole in the ground. Once you defeat it, Bear actually shows up.
Jill, have you found anything interesting?
Yes, but I can't see very well.
How about going down to check by yourself? I have a rope here.
Oh, do you? Well, then I'll try to go down using the rope.
Wait.
Hey, what's going on?
He has a rope with him, it's just that Jill climbs down to the hole and checks it out. Unfortunately,
Sorry,
he
Jill.
drops it.
Wait. I'll go and get another rope.
Barry? Barry?
Now here's where I made one of the mistakes in my playthrough. If you mess this part up, you can't really get the good ending from what I understand. What you can do is wait for Barry to show back up with a rope. Unfortunately, I didn't do that. I just opened up the secret passage on this gravestone here, and I went forward through the basement. The basement actually has an elevator that lets you go up to a part of the second floor you couldn't reach before. And in here you can find a library with some optional stuff. While I was here, I did pick up the MO discs, which you can use for one of the good endings later on. Previously, when we were in the courtyard, there was a slot for one of the lifts to have a battery. We'll find that in the mansion once we get all the keys and we're able to explore fully. And once you get the battery, you can head back and enter there, go up the elevator, and then switch over the water, draining and letting this waterfall that was there before disappear. This then lets us enter the caverns. This is one of the places that I have a mild gripe about the game design, is there's no direct save room as soon as you enter here. There's a place to save when you enter, but there's no crates to manage your items. So you have to pretty much go through this till the end or head back up. You then run into a badly wounded teammate Enrico, who informs Jill that someone has betrayed Stars and is causing troubles.
Is that voice Enrico's?
Yeah?
You're alive!
Wait there! Are you with anybody, Jill?
What? Oh no, I'm alone. But why are you asking?
Listen, the stars are going to be finished soon. Someone is a traitor. Everything was plotted from the start by Umbrella.
Unfortunately, then he gets shot in the chest.
Enrico! Who killed him, I wonder?
As you head back, there's a key item that's found there, and you'll use this to get through the rest of the caverns. You dodge a boulder so you avoid becoming a Jill sandwich. We then face the cavern's boss, which is literally a giant enemy spider. I messed up a little bit fighting this boss, but luckily I had plenty of blue herbs by this point. Once you destroy him, you can actually find a knife that they leave there just in case you didn't bring one with you, and you'll have to manually cut down all the webs on this door. Finally, you can access a save room in the caverns. From here on out, you'll need 2 key emblems to get this. If not, you can head back to the mansion and make sure you got that and all the optional items. In my playthrough, I decided just to move forward. Not gonna lie, I was having a lot more difficulty with this game than I thought I would have. I knew I was feeling ill from surgery and healing up a little bit, and I haven't been feeling the best lately. But something was just kind of off. The game seemed sluggish and slow. The colors seemed a little bit different, and something was just wrong. I made frequent mistakes that caused me to die again and again, and I never remembered having this much issue when I played through it on the DS. Then when restarting the game, I noticed that it said Sony Entertainment of Europe. And then it finally dawned on me what was wrong this whole time that I was playing through it. So like I mentioned earlier in the video, I would talk about one of the major flaws of the PlayStation Classic. Sony unfortunately rushed this to make it to Christmas season, and to get it out in the US and other markets besides Japan, they used the PAL ROM so they could have multiple languages set up. Unfortunately, this is one of those PAL titles, and for those that don't know, in North America and Japan we have the NTSC video standard, which runs at 60 Hz. PAL runs at 50 Hz, so this game technically runs at 5/6 the speed of the version I'm used to, and if I recall correctly, the PlayStation Classic only seems to have emulation issues with the PAL titles, not the NTSC titles. There are ways to adjust the emulator that uses, unfortunately I didn't do that, and by this time I was already in the last region of the game, so I decided just to stick it out. It is a shame that Sony and PlayStation didn't put enough time in this device, and gives the proper version that we needed for North America. For a bit of a comparison on how slow this game can actually be and compared to how it should run for me, I have the PlayStation 3 version of Director's Cut on PSN. This is the North American version emulated.
Resident Evil.
What is this?
Wow, what a mansion!
Captain Wesker, where's Chris?
Stop it! Don't open that door!
But Chris is...
What? What is this?
With that gripe out of the way, let's get on to the final part of the game. Using both emblems causes this fountain to drain, exposing an elevator. Descending downward even further with this ladder, we find a rather interesting place, a secret laboratory. Down here you'll find a more difficult version of laboratory zombies, along with zombies that have been decayed so much that they're in the nude. These pose a more difficult threat. Here we'll also find documentation explaining to us more about the T-virus and the virus that causes these mutations, along with devices that will allow us to use the MO disk to get a password. And another key item gives us a slideshow. As we go through it, everything seems normal, depicting each of the mutations, or BOWs as we learned they're called. But at the very end, there's something rather suspicious. We see a very familiar face in the final slide depicting all the researchers on the project. We then find an elevator that will lead us out of here. Unfortunately, there's no power to it, so we'll have to go into the power room to activate it. Holy shit, I don't remember those when I played the DS version. I have no idea how I completely forgot about these enemies, possibly because they're only in this one room in the game, but they're called chimeras, and you gotta watch out for them because they can cling to the ceiling and they can be rather difficult to deal with. At this point in the game, I just decided to burst through them with a bazooka or a shotgun. Another factor in getting the final ending depends on if you get all the codes from the MO discs. If you do, you can open up this room. Going down this oddly secured hallway, we find Chris in a cell.
Jill? Is that you, Jill?
Oh, Chris, you're alive!
Of course. Damn it, we're in quite a predicament, Jill.
I know, Chris. Anyway, I have to open this room. It doesn't work. Well,
Unfortunately, I
Chris,
can't
I'll
free
be
him
sure
just
to come
yet,
back
but I'll
and
come
help
back to
you
save
soon.
him later.
Will you wait here?
Thanks. I'll be waiting here for you.
With power to the elevator, I was now ready for the final fight. I geared up with everything that I needed for the final boss battle, and I headed to the elevator. There, Barry meets up with Jill, and he's acting still rather suspicious.
I was looking for you.
Barry.
Jill, don't be angry. I wanted you to wait for me.
Barry, don't screw up again like you did when you dropped that rope.
After we head down the elevator, we meet up with Wesker.
Wesker?
You did a fine job, Barry.
Just as I thought.
I think you should stay away from Barry, Jill.
At this point, Jill is well aware that Wesker had betrayed everybody, and this was a setup by the Umbrella Corporation in order to get tests on their new BOWs.
So cruel.
Wesker then reveals that he's been blackmailing Barry, threatening his family.
Because you'll be free from
That's the only reason that Barry was willing to betray us at all, is because he was worried about his
Why
wife
do
and
you have to
children.
Destroy stars.
That's Umbrella's intention. This laboratory has been engaging in dangerous experiments, and recently an accident has occurred. Anyway, this disaster cannot be made public.
That's why having stars nosing about is so inconvenient. So you're a slave of Umbrella now, along with these virus monsters.
I think you misunderstand me, Jill. To me, the monsters you mention mean nothing. I'm going to burn all of them together with this entire laboratory. I must complete my mission as ordered by Umbrella. Barry, go up on the ground and wait there.
Barry!
Barry's such a fool.
As
He'll
Barry
be under
leaves,
the
Wesker
control of
reveals to us that
Umbrella
he lied to
forever.
Barry, and his blackmail was a
Both
sham all
Umbrella
along.
and you can intimidate him by taking his family as hostages.
Umbrella? Well, I intimidated him, but it had nothing to do with Umbrella. I just used him for my personal purposes, though both you and Barry seem to think I was following orders from Umbrella.
So you're planning something else?
Wesker then tells us that he's found the ultimate weapon, bringing us into the lab to show us the Tyrant in person.
Tyrant virus is a super virus, which creates a monster which is much stronger than human beings.
I'm not gonna lie, I think the Tyrant's
Is
actually a
the
cool,
most
intimidating
powerful
final boss for this
biological
game.
weapon in the world.
As Tyrant comes to life, he betrays Wesker and kills him right in front of us. We then have to take him down.
It does.
Luckily, earlier in the game, I was able to get a hold of the Magnum, which is an optional weapon, making this boss battle rather simple. With the Magnum, you're able to take the Tyrant down with only a few shots. And with the Tyrant and Wesker out of the way, you're able to get the Master Key from Wesker's corpse. I did so, and I headed back to save Chris. Now, I was rather confused at this point, because I could have swore in my DS playthrough of the game that the countdown timer for the base destruct had already started at this point.
Oh, Jill!
Maybe I'm just misremembering that.
Sorry for keeping you waiting.
With the key, we're able to save Chris, and as we head up to the emergency exit, we find Barry. Unfortunately, in my playthrough, because of my choices, Barry did not survive. Then we head out to the helipad. I made sure that I had plenty of items and ammo ready for this final boss battle. And all you have to do is go get the flare over here and then set it off in the middle of the area. I did that, and then I was really surprised because there was no second Tyrant battle. Evidently in the bad ending you don't fight him, you just kind of have the game end. Overall, going back and replaying this was actually kind of refreshing. Like I mentioned, I think it's mostly the PAL version and my current ailments that made this a little difficult for me. I just enjoyed seeing where the game series started at, and it's just crazy to imagine how far it's come in the last 25 years. I think after replaying this, I'm still glad that there is ways to still play it. It may be a little more difficult and it's not available on modern platforms, but playing the original version gives you a good perspective of everything. Even with the remakes out for the games, I'm glad that this game still exists and I can play and enjoy it. I don't think the remakes are a full replacement for the original games, but I do think that they're a good thing to check out. Then after the credits roll, I get the bad ending showing that the tyrant was still alive, implying that I didn't take care of him. We then get the option to save the game, and you can actually do New Game Plus.
Wow, what a mansion!
I'll leave some more of my commentaries to the game on the second part when I play through as Chris. Well, I think that sums about everything I wanted to say for this title. Unfortunately, I'm not going to go through and play through as Chris on this version. Just playing through the PAL version itself was a little too much. So, expect to see me again soon. I am still going to actually play through this game, but I'm going to switch over to a more reliable version of it.
Barry?
What is it?
Watch out! It's a monster!
Let me take care of this. What is it?
Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate you watching to the end. If you would, give me a like, subscribe if you're interested in seeing more videos, and then in the comments tell me what you liked, what you didn't like. I'm definitely open to a positive and critical feedback, and I hope to see you guys all again soon. Take care.